Are you old enough to remember the 1960s cartoon The Jetsons?
Meet George Jetson.
George Jetson, oh gosh, that brings back memories. Well, this week was the week George Jetson was said to have been born, 2022. So have we made it as far as we thought? Well, we might not be flying around in cars, but technology has certainly come a long way since the 1960s. And joining us now is futurist Paul Spain. Morena, Paul.
Morena.
Wonderful to have you with us. Well, I introduced you as futurist, so tell us exactly what is a futurist? What do you do?
Well, there's lots of ways of defining what a futurist is. Big firms tend to have one or more futurists who are helping them work out how to navigate the future and where they're going. For me, what I think is that actually all of us should be futurists. We should all be wearing this hat and looking forward to the future rather than getting so caught up in the here and now. And we often, miss the cues and miss what's going on, and that's to our detriment, both as individuals and, when we look more broadly, nationally and globally.
Okay, so when it comes to thinking futuristically, are futurists the kind of people that are glass half full or glass half empty? Are they opportunistic or are they more realistic?
Look, there's probably all sorts, but, generally I think if you're going to be looking further out, you're looking to how can we impact and change the future? So, that's in itself is a positive thing, right? So we're looking at the different cues, we're looking at what the possibilities are, we're looking at the potential issues, so things like climate change and so on, and making sure or doing our best to be able to steer things in a good direction.
Oh, and I'm wondering, because the government is releasing its national adaptation strategy today, who they worked with, what futurists they worked with in terms of looking to the future, building resilience for our communities. Can you name some of maybe the big names who are futurists in our world that we might recognise so we understand what kind of a person a futurist is?
Yeah, look, I think, to me anyway, the biggest futurists that we have here in New Zealand are the likes of Peter Beck, Rod Drury, founded Xero, Sir Stephen Tindall. These are people that have looked ahead into the future, seen what's possible, but not just had this viewpoint. They've come in and they've helped make it happen and define, the future that we have today. And when we look more broadly, it's the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, and so on of this world.
So we don't exactly, like the Jetsons, we don't exactly have flying cars that we used to commute with.
Why not?
Every day I was quite disappointed, but, you never know. But with climate change and all that, we'd have to have electric cars, obviously, if we're thinking futuristically.
Yeah.
But what happens if we don't keep up with technology?
Well, there's this wave of disruption that comes through because the technology doesn't stop, right? And so, one example was Kodak. They led the way from a photography perspective. In fact, they invented the digital camera, but they didn't quite figure out what their place was. We saw Netflix, who sat down at the table with Blockbuster and said, will you buy us? Will you invest just $50 million? And of course, we know, Blockbuster are gone, and Netflix is north of $100 billion these days. So that's the risk, and this is relevant both to in so many scenarios. So for us individually, the firms and the organisations we work with, and if we want to ensure New Zealand has a great future ahead, that's why we need to be wearing this futurist hat and looking and defining and setting what the future will be.
Gosh, if you think about the opportunities that futurists have thought about and come up with, and those opportunities that have been rejected, as you mentioned. So Netflix, this is in the year 2000, right? It was 22 years ago. Netflix sat down with Blockbuster Videos and said, buy us. Or I think, from what I understand, they also said, let us take over and manage your live streaming or your online, your internet page. And they rejected. They said, no, you know, I suppose maybe narrow thinking, didn't really realise the capacity that could happen. Well, look at Netflix now, huge major streaming. I mean, they're buying, you know, movies, they're funding big blockbuster movies now, blockbuster, actually Netflix movies. But there are other examples. I read that Yahoo had an opportunity to buy Google.
Yeah, I don't know the insides on that, but you know, probably in more recent years, we've seen Tesla, you know, rise from being this company that maybe was going to go bust. No one was quite sure. Certainly, Elon Musk was suggested along the way that could have been a possibility. He tried to reach out to Apple, the potential maybe of Apple acquiring Tesla.
Wow.
We look at the valuation on Tesla now, and you know, they're not quite Apple, but they're probably, you know, a third to half of the way there. So yeah, we see these things all the time, and you know, here in New Zealand, there's, you know, so many examples of, you know, firms that have been passed by because they haven't kept up with the play. But you know, we have so many good examples too of firms that have navigated the future and are still here, that have been around for many decades.
Yeah.
And those that continue to exist are those who work out how to navigate that and not be disrupted.
Really awesome advice from you, Paul. Thanks so much for joining us. Paul Spain, futurist. Think like a futurist.